This is your Adventist News, a service of the South Bahamas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. I'm Adriel Hepburn. Coming up in this week's broadcast, Adventist leaders speak about social injustice, and Bahamas Academy Elementary Class of 2020 celebrate. These stories and more on this week's Adventist News. Thanks for joining us for this week's Adventist News. On May 25th, George Floyd Jr., an unarmed African-American male, died in Minneapolis, Minnesota after Derek Chauvin, a Caucasian police officer, physically knelt on his neck for over 8 minutes during an arrest, while 2 other officers further restrained him, and a 4th officer prevented onlookers from intervening. Mr. Floyd, who was handcuffed and lying face down in the street at the time, while he repeatedly told the 4 officers, "I can't breathe." Footage of the incident revealed that for the last 3 of those minutes, Mr. Floyd lied motionless and had no pulse, but the arresting officers made no attempts to revive him. It was said that Officer Chauvin kept his knee on Floyd's neck as arriving emergency medical technicians attempted to treat him. George Floyd's death sparked several protests across the United States and globally. Protesters marched and demonstrated against the racial profiling and use of excessive force by police officers and lack of police accountability, leaving the world to ask if the same treatment would have occurred if it was a Caucasian person that was arrested, if the actions taken by the officers would have been the same.
What do you want?
Justice!
When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want?
Justice!
When do you want it?
Now! Justice! No peace!
In the wake of Floyd's death, many accounts of looting, violence, and aggressive police activity occurred. Along with the recent shooting and killing of Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old African-American man who was jogging near his home in Brunswick, Georgia, by 2 armed white men in a pickup truck, the killings of innocent black men and women have been continuing throughout the world. The Seventh-day Adventist World Church gave a statement in the wake of George Floyd's killing, and last week a number of the conferences within the United States of America and Canada took to the streets in peaceful protest. As Christians, what is the practical response to the issues of discrimination and racial bias? And even further, how can we eliminate segregation as a church?
This problem of racism and segregation and the killing in a senseless manner of George Floyd has brought to the surface by the demonstration and people protesting across the length and breadth of America and even outside of America speak to what has been a problem ignored for many years. And I wish to applaud pockets of the Adventist community that have demonstrated, albeit in a peaceful and responsible manner. Within the church, we believe that all lives matter to God. All carry value, dignity, and are important to God. That is why Jesus died. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish. And we tend to look with favor at those who maybe have a certain financial standing, those who have a certain type of education, maybe those who have a different complexion, the lighter hue or what have you. We tend to regard them in ways that we may not regard some others. Now, these are subtle forms of racism and segregation, and are they to exist within the body of Christ? Certainly not, because when we look at the Bible speaks about all human beings of having equality, of having value, of having been created after the image of God, regardless of color. We are all one in Christ.
The Bible states that all men are created equal and all bear the image of God. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 states, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them." This tells us that God does not want division, racial inequality, or any form of discrimination, as we are all created by him.
However, it brought back to mind the struggle of the blacks in the United States for over 400 years. And it reminded me that we continually live in a world of sin. And in this world of sin, the answer to the sin problem is Jesus Christ. Far too long, the church has been silent when it comes to these social justice matters. And we have a terrible history in the church as well. We have black churches and white churches in some parts of the world, particularly the United States. And I think it is not a good picture for children of God. And to our church, specifically the Seventh Adventist Church, I think that it is time that we take a stand against these type of systemic racism that we have all through society, particularly in the United States. And by the way, we have it here in the Bahamas as well. We are more subdued, but we have racism here. Not as bad as the States, but the church needs to stand up when we see injustice. Interesting, today I was on the internet and I came across a survey that said to sign up for the petition that said that we are against racism and thing about Black Lives Matter. And so I happily signed the petition, and I'm sure that somewhere my name will show up, Kenny DeVoe, as a part of this protest. I think that as Bahamians and Christians in this part of the world, we ought to join the fight or the protest or the standing up for those persons in other parts of the world who are experiencing these injustices.
We've all been shocked and saddened by the savagery and the police brutality that we have seen on our television screens and on YouTube videos emanating out of the United States in the past few days. Images of a white police officer with his knees firmly planted in the neck of a black man whose face is down in the dirt, begging for his life, begging for an opportunity to breathe. And instead of this officer easing the pressure of the neck of the black man, he firmly planted his knees even more until the breath of the young man passed out. He died on the spot. It reminds us of how brutal can be the inhumanity of man to his fellow man. Our bones are placed in us by God. And God did not place in any human being any racist bones. It was the Apostle Paul himself who made a powerful statement from the book of Acts. I think it was Acts chapter 17 and verse 26. Acts wrote, Paul says, God has made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth. And he has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings. Like the psalmist David, I think that each one of us, when we look at racism and the issues at hand, we have to ask ourselves, say like David the prayer, search me, O God. I think that each one of us has to do a self-evaluation and ask ourselves the question, is it I? Do I have any traces of these evil in me? And that's what the psalmist is saying. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. See if there be any evil way in me, wicked way in me. Cleanse me from all of these and set me free.
Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Director for the South Bahamas Conference, Pastor T. Basil Stirrup, also shared in the conversation.
Living in a world where a man can be murdered because of the color of his skin is teaching us that deep-rooted systemic racism still exists. And the most unfortunate thing is, this type of behavior can be found among people who claim to be followers of Christ. So the aftermath of what happened to George Floyd and others is actually the best climate for Christians to renew their resolve to fight for human rights and the dignity of all people. This is a wonderful opportunity for the church to shine, as there is no other entity on earth that can model the love and grace of God to others. So I urge members of the church to prayerfully consider how we interact with everyone in our communities. And this will enable us to lead the process of healing broken communities as we provide a conduit for everybody to experience the love and compassion of Jesus Christ.
COVID-19 may have seemed to interrupt our normal way of life, but this week Bahamas Academy did what they could to make their graduates from the elementary division feel celebrated and extraordinary. Bahamas Academy celebrated students of the elementary division on June 9, 2020 by hosting a drive-through ceremony. Students received well-deserved packages after working diligently this past school year, despite the pandemic of COVID-19. Leading the procession were the valedictorian Asia Ramming and salutatorian Christopher Carter. As the students transition into a new phase of their lives, teachers and administration desire that they leave with a profound memory of elementary school. Despite the current circumstance, we pray that all students realize prayer plus hard work equals success. The students were privileged to have well-wishers shout, scream, and honk horns as pride raced through each heart. We hope that the memorable occasion will be etched on the mind of each family of the class of 2020, the quarantine graduates. The night ended with a snuggle and read, where the students were read to by several individuals, including Mrs. Yvonne Lewis Shelton, manager of Dare to Dream, 3ABN. The administration, along with the entire South Bahamas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, especially the Children and Adolescent Ministries Department, would like to wish all of our graduates and those from throughout the elementary school within the Bahamas God's richest blessings as they begin this new chapter of their lives. God has great plans for your lives. Please stay tuned. We'll have your upcoming events after this short break.
In the event of a hurricane, the National Emergency Agency, NEMA, provides us with these tips. 1. Make necessary house repairs. 2. Secure a first aid kit. 3. Have enough canned food items to last for 3 to 5 days. 4. Allocate 3 gallons of drinking water per person. 5. Make protective clothing such as rainwear and bedding or sleeping bags available. 6. Secure a battery-powered radio, flashlight, and clock, along with extra batteries. 7. Stock up on special needs items for infants, the elderly, and physically challenged. 8. Make sure your car tank is filled with gas. 9. Keep extra cash on hand. 10. Keep a fully charged cell phone with its charger. 11. Place all documents in a protective bag. And 12. Stock up on pet supplies. This has been a public service announcement from the South Bahamas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists.
Welcome back to Adventist News. Coming up in the South Bahamas Conference. The Bible class for the South Bahamas Conference continues this Sunday, June 14th at 6:30 p.m. with guest presenter and theologian Dr. Jonathan Paulian. This week's instruction will be on The Last Deception, a study of Revelation 13. These sessions have been very informative, and hundreds have been viewing and asking the questions via Zoom. You can connect also on the YouTube link on the South Bahamas Conference website, where you can ask your questions as well. During the last few months, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, our Children and Adolescent Ministries Department has been engaging in several innovative approaches to minister to our youngsters.
Our activities are online, and I find this an exciting time because the Charm Department is experiencing the creativity of our leaders and also our children. Apart from these online services and activities, we've also seen the production of television shows which air every week on ATV 658. And I want to thank those of you who have been contributing. I also want to thank the leaders for doing what they do every single week. It's just awesome. In the summer, our Vacation Bible School experience will also be online, and it will be another exciting time. The Charm Department we're committed to the spiritual and the social development of our children and our adolescents.
For more information on these events and more, visit our conference website at southbahamasconference.org, where you can view the news as well as various programming and read the weekly logos.
Anger is an intense emotion that can sometimes cause hostile behavior and activates our fight or flight response. There's no one way to cause anger. In fact, every individual has different triggers. Some people think that anger is a bad emotion and that emotion should be kept in. But bottled anger makes things worse and oftentimes lead to depression and anxiety. Most times, anger pushes us to do better. If handled correctly, it can give us a sense of calm after an outburst and motivate us to effectively solve problems. Our diet can increase our mood when we eat fish and leafy greens that contain dopamine, otherwise known as the feel-good chemical. Even by getting more vitamin D from the sun, we can reduce our incidence of depression and mood disorders. The Better Health Channel suggests healthy ways to manage anger for the long term. 1. Keep a diary of your angry outbursts and try to understand why you get mad. 2. Exercise regularly. 3. Learn relaxation techniques such as meditation or yoga. Ephesians 4 verse 26 says, "Be ye angry, and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." This has been Parisha Ferguson with your health tip, courtesy of Adventist Television. And remember, God wants us to prosper and be in good health.
We go now to our news feature from around the world with the Adventist News Network.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, Tropical Storm Amanda drenched El Salvador on May 31, killing 16 people and causing widespread damage to roads and bridges from overflowing rivers. Thousands were left homeless in areas already deeply affected by the coronavirus pandemic.
The homes of more than 160 Adventist families were destroyed or flooded, and many of them are in shelters, church leaders said. No deaths among the church members are reported.
President of the Adventist Church in El Salvador, Abel Pacheco, said, "Even through this situation that we are living today here in El Salvador, with COVID-19 and this natural disaster affecting so many people and so many members, we can all look upward during these difficult times. We can rely on God." Pacheco reported that 2 church members have died due to COVID-19, while 21 members have contracted the virus.
The government has made 160 shelters available and reports that more than 24,000 families across the Central American country have been affected.
The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, in El Salvador has already contacted providers to purchase food to assist 800 families. ADRA International, ADRA in America, and local ADRA funds will assist about 300 families with basic food items and tissue paper by the end of next week.
Food distribution will take place throughout the 5 local church conferences across El Salvador with the help of church pastors and volunteers who will deliver the goods to the displaced families.
ADRA El Salvador has already distributed clothing for children and the elderly to 100 families this week.
Walter L. Pearson Jr., the second speaker and director for Breath of Life Ministries, passed away on June 7. He was 74 years old. Pearson was born on November 18, 1945, in Mobile, Alabama, in the United States. He graduated from Oakwood College, now Oakwood University, in 1967 with a degree in religion and theology. Pearson joined the Adventist ministry in 1969 as the associate pastor of the Glenville Seventh-day Adventist Church in Cleveland, Ohio, alongside his mentor and senior pastor, Harold L. Cleveland. Pearson was later ordained at the Allegheny West Conference Camp Meeting in 1971. Pearson was invited to be the Youth and Urban Ministries Director for the Allegheny West Conference. He later served as the senior pastor of the North Philadelphia Adventist Church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the Berrien Adventist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. While serving as the senior pastor of the Berrien Church, he was also a member of the executive board of Mayor Maynard H. Jackson's Atlanta Religious Mobilization Against Crime. In 1991, he became the first Seventh-day Adventist inducted into the Martin Luther King Jr. Board of Preachers and Collegium of Scholars at Morehouse College in Atlanta. After C.D. Brooks retired in 1998, Pearson became Speaker Director for Breath of Life Television Ministries. He served in this capacity for 12 years. His determination to deliver the gospel message allowed him to lead successful evangelistic meetings nationally as well as internationally in Jamaica, Ghana, Poland, Kenya, and the United Kingdom. Along with wife Patricia, Pearson is survived by 3 adult children, Erica, Walter III, Mia Liani, and 4 grandsons. A funeral service is scheduled for June 15 at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Berrien Seventh-day Adventist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. A live stream of the service can be viewed at atlantaberrien.com.
That brings us to the end of our Adventist news from the South Bahamas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Please, feel free to share what is happening at your church by sending us your news stories and upcoming events. Feel free to email them to sbcadventistnews@gmail.com. To view rebroadcast of the Adventist news along with other programming, or to keep in touch with what's happening in our conference, please visit and subscribe to the conference website, southbahamasconference.org, our YouTube channel, and our Facebook and Instagram pages. On behalf of our production team of Adventist Television Channel 658, have a happy Sabbath, and thank you for watching this week's broadcast. I'm Adriel Hepburn for the SBC Media Network.